Hi everyone and welcome to episode 309 of the Mike White's podcast. I'm Jack, as always, joined by KC.
No?
How's things, mate?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks. How are you?
I'm absolutely fine. I am really tired. Just a couple of days in a row of not sleeping and then started work at 5:30 this morning, but we're done now. And we'll get through this before I have anything else to do. And then once that's done, I'm going to be a real, guy in his 30s with a child, and I'm going to go have a sleep in the afternoon. Because that's what happens when you're a real grown-up.
I mean, unfortunately for you, we do have to discuss an action-packed game.
Yeah, the range of responses to the game at the weekend has been quite something. Leeds won, West Brom won. It's gone everything from this is like a really good result, which it isn't, to the sky is falling in and there's no chance Leeds get promoted, which it also isn't. I just didn't think we were at it, and I thought West Brom were pretty good.
Yeah, although having said that, and I do think certainly first half, I think we struggled to get to grips with West Brom after we scored in terms of the marking mostly, and sort of whether we were going zone or whether we were going man for man or however it was meant to be.
I can tell you certainly weren't zonal, judging by the giant hole in the middle of midfield.
But for all the decent positions they got into, West Brom had less than half as many shots as we did.
Yeah, but did they end up with more on target, though? Because I think we only had like 2 shots on target all game.
Yes, 3 on target to our 2.
Yeah. Obviously, it hasn't come up a lot lately because we've been playing pretty well and we've been on a really good run of form. I mean, is that 17 games unbeaten?
Yeah.
There's not very much to complain about, and I'm not going to start now. But in the games earlier in the season where it did go wrong, we had a lot of this, like 15, 16 shots, but there'd be 2 or 3 on target. And we had a bit of that. Obviously, it started pretty well. We sort of got about them. West Brom, mind you, I suppose the first let-off was still at 0-0, wasn't it? The John Swift one from the edge of the box.
Yeah.
Yeah, Firpo got caught like upfield and central. That won't come up again in being upfield and central. They break down the right. It's a good pullback to John Swift on the edge, and he would say that he should score. I would say he should hit the target.
Yeah, when you watch it, it seems like he just doesn't make very good connection with it, so
Yeah.
scuffs it wide as your cat tries to take over.
Yeah,
yeah, I definitely agree with should be hitting the target. It's coming across him onto his right foot on the edge of the area, so it's always going to be a bit tough to generate the power from there for that one. But yeah, for it to go completely wide was, I think would be very disappointing. But yeah, like you said, it was kind of the first of a few times of, again, certainly in the first half, of Firpo being out of position away from and too far away from the man he should then be tracking.
Yeah, I will say I'm not going to call it out of position because him going up high and going central, and Bogle's doing it to not quite as extravagant set, but it's definitely instructed. So if we get caught on the break, I think Farke's decided the upside of him playing this high up is worth it. So we're just gonna. I'm not going to say that he's like left his man because I don't think it's necessarily his fault. But we saw the other side of it a few minutes later. Leeds sort of one of the few times where it felt like we pressed high and actually won the ball back. And we ended up from chasing around, everyone was a bit all over the shop. We ended up with Dan James on the left, who cuts inside, who cuts back, doesn't cut inside really, cuts back onto his right foot, puts in a great cross. And there he is again, Alan Shearer, Junior Firpo, getting in ahead of the keeper to head home. Second goal in 2 games. It wasn't as good as the one against Sheffield United, where you can see him lurking and ready to time his run. This one, he just straight run in and score. But it put us 1-0 up. And the level of celebration, I think part of it was that it was an early kickoff, so it's always a bit subdued. But I think Leeds, because we've been so good when we go 1-0 up, I think everyone got really confident for about 10 minutes. And it sort of killed the atmosphere a little bit.
Yeah, there were a few chants from the West Brom fans of 1-0 up and you still don't sing.
It did go quiet.
Yeah, obviously, I think you get the initial reaction of the Junior Firpo song, and then like you say, I think it dies down a bit. It's another really well taken header.
Yeah,
people who score more headers than Pascal Strauch. It's everyone. Dan James, Junior Firpo, they all do.
Yeah, but no, I was real. It was a good goal. But the problem, it also seemed to work well because West Brom, they were never just sat on the edge of the box. By the way, did you see the interview with Firpo and I think it was Rothwell? I haven't actually seen this. I've just seen people on Twitter talking about it.
No, I haven't.
The post-match interview, it was like, oh, well, there was only one team trying to win the game and, it's out. And I must admit, I thought it came off really fucking whingy. Because the last 10 minutes, West Brom was sat back. But that's because we made them sit back, and they still had a basically 1v1 at the end on the break. But we got caught up. I don't think they sat back and defended at all. I thought they were well worth a point, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I would say they were probably clinical's not the right word, but I think in terms of directness is probably the better way to look at it. I thought they were more direct. I thought they did a very good job of pulling us out of position and opening up gaps. And I think certainly a few times as well you had a lot of space on the far side.
Yeah.
That was available, and we just seemed to have this issue of instead of kind of going your sort of basic man-to-man of full-back marks their winger, centre-backs mark their centre-forward, and essentially each team having a spare man in midfield who eventually find each other. But we just didn't, and you saw these times when Solomon was tracking like John Swift inside. You're like, what? Why are you going there? Where's Brendan Aronson? Why is Dan James not tracking their left back?
There was a few times where Dan, and that's so unlike him. It's really un-Dan James, but
yeah, and it just we just looked really uncomfortable with the way they were playing, and I think part of that was there was a period when they were in possession that Alex Mowat was essentially dropping in as a third centre back, so their full backs could really push on. And I think at that point, Brendan Aronson, this isn't a criticism of him, but I don't think we kind of prepared for that, and it kind of left Aronson in a bit of a hole of, well, who am I marking? Because I can't go to him. And it just seemed we had this struggle of who Aronson, Rothwell, and Tanaka were sort of meant to be covering. Yeah. And I thought they made that work for them quite well.
Yeah, they definitely moved around well because they had like a few minutes where they kept consistently getting overloads out wide, and then I think we reacted to that. And after we reacted to that, they just kept getting loads of space through the middle. It was just good work from Tony Mowbray, really, I suppose. It set up well and it was working. But at this point, obviously, we still 1-0 up. So although you're worried in the ground, it isn't that bad. And apparently, something we couldn't really see with how far away we are in the East Stand. Apparently, Farker was going absolutely spare during all that. Because, I don't know what the possession was at half-time, but it'll have been West Brom with most of it, for certain. And apparently, the lack of control was there. And it's then, I suppose, a shame that despite all of this and these struggles that we think we're having, that we had out of possession, and how well West Brom were playing. Pascal Strout runs out, makes a tackle he's no need to make, gives away a free kick. They swing it into the back post. They've got 2 against apparently none, basically. And Darnell Furlong has a free header. Now, it's a difficult angle to score from. So there has been some debate whether he meant it or not, but I'm going to give him the credit and say he did, and say it's a fantastic header. But it's just annoying that despite all of those struggles where you're going, oh, what we're going to do about this, what we're going to do about that, but it's a set piece that lets us down. But it's the first header we've conceded all season, which I didn't realise until I read it on Twitter after the game.
Yeah.
So I can't really go too mad about it. But, that was back end at first half. And I thought that West Brom very much deserved to get in level.
Yeah, I think it was entirely fair. Like you said, I think post us scoring, I'd definitely say they look the more positive of the 2 teams, and I think their ball retention was very good. But they, like I said, I do think there was a directness about them, and it's one of those things that we'll say. I don't think there'll be many more times we actually get to say it this season, judging by the fixture list. But it's quite refreshing seeing a team come and have a go again.
Yeah. Second half, we were better. We weren't great, but we were definitely better. Those big holes stopped opening up to the same extent. There was still moments for West Brom, like they had what was probably the best chance at half. Let's see.
When did they make their subs?
That's what I was looking at, basically. Carlin Grant came on in the 69th minute, so I'm guessing it was about the 70th or 71st minute because he crossed it. And it was Furlong again from right back getting forward who heads it over in the middle. And it was a really good chance. Leeds had a couple themselves. Matteo Joseph, after he came on, picks the ball up deep, runs with it. One of the only really direct, properly running at defenders what we saw all day from Leeds. Gets into the box and hits the bar. Dan James has a chance from a fairly tight angle. Very late on, put through by Bogle, goes wide. But despite Leeds definitely were better and pushed them back, and by the end of it, it was all Leeds by the end. But I still don't think that we created enough to be pissed off with a draw. But the main things that I had coming out of it was, and I was advocating for this change. Were we worse in midfield for having Rothwell Tanaka and missing that slightly more defensive option?
I don't know. Because if you'd have got the Gruev that played the last couple of games, I think you'd have still had similar issues anyway. Certainly. I think the frustration with Rothwell was that his passing probably wasn't what he wanted it to be, and I think he gave away possession a few more times than we've come to expect from him. I think it was the conundrum for Farke, in as much as he is playing a team in the top 6. His every instinct is to play a second holding midfielder, but the holding midfielder that he hasn't played well in the last couple of games against someone who, 2 games ago had a fantastic sub appearance and did fine enough against when he came on against Sheffield United as well. So it was always going to be a tough one, was that, because obviously Rothwell is a more attack minded player, but I don't know. Like I say, given how he'd played the last couple of games, if he'd have played the same as that, I don't think it'd have been much different.
And the other thing I was going to do, because I think we were largely fine at the back. To be honest, I think Joe Roden was my man at match. He was up there anyway, and then obviously later on they have that break and he chases back with that recovery pace that I talk about quite a lot because I think it's such a massive strength, and gets back in and makes an important challenge. Because if we had lost it 2-1, then there would have been a real meltdown in the fan base because it's Leeds and that's what happens. The other thing that I was really curious about is 2 subs. Joseph for Aronson, Nonto for Solomon. Watching that game and obviously Solomon did go off, but he didn't have a great day. And Dan James, I know he put in a really good cross for the goal and he ends up with the chance later on. But I thought Dan James was really not at it. My dad was going spare at the game about the number of times he was giving the ball away. And I thought, yeah, he has given it away quite a lot today. And then while I was at work earlier today, and I barely heard any of it because it was busy. But one thing that I did pick out from the All Stats Aren't We podcast was he apparently finished the game with a 36% pass completion.
Oof.
In 90 minutes. Like, I mean, he felt like he gave it away a lot in the game. It didn't feel like he gave it away that much, but apparently.
Yeah.
And if I'm Largi Ramazani, I'm sitting on the bench watching that and thinking, the fuck.
I think there's probably certainly a few forward options on the bench. I think you're very right to feel that. The Aronson one was an odd one because I thought the defensive side of Aronson's game was sort of back to where it had been pre-Sunderland. I thought he was much better closing down. I think he was more active in that role. You then had to counter that with Aronson goes through one-on-one and somehow doesn't get a shot away.
Yeah, which he has got previous for. You've said before, when he doesn't have time, he's twice the player.
Yeah. That means he's half the man. Yeah, I think at this point you just call it classic Brendan, wouldn't you? Oh, look at him. He's got all this space in front of him. Oh, he's got so much time to think about this, and that's not going to help him whatsoever. I thought, although we probably needed a change, I don't know whether him coming off was the change that we needed. But I mean, I suppose after that happens, we are on the front foot more. But I don't necessarily know if that's because by that point West Brom have thought they're coming on to us. We'll take the point now.
Yeah.
And even then I think they looked more like if there was one of the last 3 games, if there was one of the teams that was going to hit us on the counter attack and get something, they looked, I think, the more likely of the 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I try and think about it, certainly, yeah, I think Ramazani should have come on at some point.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anyone else that was on the bench that would have been worth a look at. Maybe. Sorry, this is blue sky thinking here. Maybe Isaac Schmidt.
Yeah, that was never going to happen. But the truth is, his fullbacks were attacking plenty, so I do understand that. It's not as even so because obviously I understand wanting to leave Dan James on, given his recent form and everything, and it's reasonable. It wasn't working. And I was surprised. I wasn't surprised that the first sub came in the 72nd minute, but when it was only one sub, I remember saying in the ground, I'm surprised that's only one. I thought that was going to be at least 2, maybe 3.
He loves the double sub at the 70th.
Well, you get 5 subs and you get 3 windows, so he likes to do 2, and then 1 later on.
Yeah.
Which, so just do 1 and then. I mean, when Nonto came on for Solomon, I don't think Nonto particularly had time to get into a game.
No.
And I think that would have been a better sub if he'd have made it 10 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
It might have cost me 70 quid, come to think of it, if he'd have done that.
Yeah. I also think we were trying to get more out of Dan James down that right-hand side. Who was he up against? I've forgotten their left back now. Callum Styles. Everyone's favourite Hungarian international. Well, after Gabor Kirai, but
for once I get to do a film reference. Zoltan.
So yes, I don't think a lot went through Nonto anyway. again, I don't know whether that might have been the day that you try Nonto at 10 for the last 20 minutes. If you want to leave Dan James on and you want him to make a change at 10, like I just Joel Peru never really got into the game, but again, I don't think there was a lot actually ever got through to him when he was leading the line.
Yeah, like I thought his touches and everything were fine, but yeah, he wasn't particularly involved. I mean, I understand why he went Joseph and dropped Peru to 10 because it's looked quite good when we've done that in previous games. And I mean, it worked at the end of the Sunderland game and it worked at the end of the Sheffield United game. But like, if I'm Ramazani now, I've found the stat. In the last 11 games, Ramazani's played 97 minutes.
Yes, since he's come back from injury, he had a few games where he was the first one coming on the wing, and then since the Sheffield United game when he's just suddenly switched to Nonto all of a sudden.
Yeah, and I did just look because I was curious as to how much. Like, it's not. I don't get how he's getting so few minutes. I'm fine with him not starting because James and Solomon have both been playing really well. But like, I just don't see because before he got injured, he was probably at that point as best winger. And yeah, fair enough. Other people have taken his spot, but I just find it odd that he's not getting any minutes whatsoever. But we'll see. It's one of them where maybe he gets thrown in before. You did mention Aronson, and I want to be clear, I don't think for a second that he will change it. I said last game, maybe this is one thing he could do, but it'll be the same front four. Again, we'll talk about Portsmouth later, but it will be. I think it'll be the same front four again. I think it's 10 games now. Aronson playing at number 10 in what is supposedly the best team in the league has got 1 assist in a 7-0 win and no goals. And it's not like, he's been laying on loads of chances on a plate and they've been missed by other people. I know that his off the ball work rate is good, but it's a bit like when Peru had that really bad run of form. And I said, I think that you have to drop him to give him a kick up the arse. And Farker didn't, and Peru got into really good goal scoring form. So yeah, I've been wrong before, I'll be wrong again. But I just think current form, I think dropping him and playing someone else, even if it's just for one game to give him a kick up the arse. And I wonder also, something that I didn't factor in is if he's knackered. Because this was the other bit of I think it was in the All Stats Assembly pod that we're on about. He's already played more games this season than he's ever played in a season. And there's like 10 games left. So, and he does run his arse off in every game. So I wonder if he's just a bit knackered and that's why he's not playing as well.
I mean, yeah, one of the other things I think you probably could look at in games like these that we've just had is, and it's not something he's ever really looked at, is Rothwell to 10 and go with Gruev and Tanaka. And that I think would give him, I know whoever you put in there, you're losing the pressing element from Aronson, and we don't have anyone in the team that is going to recreate that. Certainly from a creative standpoint, I think you'd be upping the game there. Whether, like you said, whether off the ball, he just thinks that having Peru and Rothwell there is too static. I don't know, but
Rothwell's weird because off the ball, he is just average pace. On the ball, he's really fast. it's an odd one.
But yeah, like you say, he's never really explored any other options other than he took a break from it for a while, and then we've gone back to dropping Peru back to 10. But like you say, you've championed Nonto before. Joe Rothwell has played there previously for teams. Solomon probably could play there.
All of our wingers, except I don't think it'd suit Dan James. The other 3 wingers could all play that role.
I mean, if AD White can play there,
we are on the subject of AD White and left backs. The other option is, of course, Junior Firpo, who plays number 10 for Dominican Republic and is basically playing there anyway.
Yeah.
So
leave him up there.
It's Aronson out for Sam Byron. Junior Firpo.
Yeah. I mean, again, we will come on to it later in the week when we discuss the Portsmouth game. But I have just looked because we've got 3 games in 6 days.
Yeah, because we've got it's Portsmouth Sunday and then Millwall like Wednesday night and then whoever we've got the following weekend.
Yeah, QPR on the Saturday. So it's a quick turnaround. So I do wonder if one of these games is where he looks at swapping the wingers out and go with Nonton Ramazani.
He'll probably do that thing again where now that we've got 4 instead of 3, they probably won't. When we had 3 fit, it was they all play 2. Now it'll probably be 2 and 1 between.
Potentially the same with the centre mids as well.
Yeah, almost certainly.
Apart from Brendan Aronson.
Yeah, he'll start all of them.
He's got a fractured leg. There's Brendan. He will start at 10. Yeah.
I've already mentioned that I thought Roden was our man at match. Did anyone in particular stand out for you?
No. It's probably the best way to describe that game. No, I don't think anyone played below a 5, and I don't think anyone played higher than a 6. It was a very mediocre performance. Like I say, I think Joe Roden was probably the best of them. Just in terms of, I thought he was the most reliable player on the pitch throughout. I thought his decision making was good. Obviously, he makes that recovery challenge at the end. I think all around his defensive work was kind of everything we've come to expect from him. Whereas you look at Bogle, I think Bogle was the better of the fullbacks, whereas I think Firpo lost possession a couple of times and was maybe a bit leggy getting back in.
But he does get the goal.
Yeah, he does get that. Can't say there was anything else particularly impressed by from the centre mids.
I thought that Tanaka's second half was pretty good. And in the first half, I don't think he was bad. I just think that he and Rothwell were so sucked out of position all the time. But you just didn't see him for long periods.
I think as you kind of go through it, it probably has to be Joe Roden. It's a good thing we've come through a game. We don't have to talk about Elamelier.
Yeah, he was.
He couldn't do anything about the goal, and we had very little else to do.
Yeah, they had a couple of efforts on target. He saved them, and the goal. Yeah, as you say, I know he gets caught towards his near post, but given where that header's from, that's a very reasonable place to be. He's got done, and that's fine. Obviously, then Sheffield United go on to win their game. Were they away at QPR 2-1?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, which is a pretty good result for them because QPR aren't a bad side. And Burnley play tomorrow night because, I mean, they got beat 3-0 at Preston in FA Cup, but there was a pretty rotated side. So
yeah, there'll be one of those stats that's not mentioned is goals conceded in the FA Cup this season.
Yeah. To be honest, it's a bit like when we got battered by Middlesbrough in the League Cup. They won't really. They had a local derby and they still won't care that much.
No.
So yeah, I mean, it drops us down to we've got 3 points on Sheffield United now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and 8 on Burnley. Basically, how good that point against West Brom is sort of comes down to what Burnley do tomorrow night.
Yeah,
if Burnley lose that, it becomes a really good point.
Yeah, I think it will end up being in the same category as many other games like that, where if you just took it as the fixture list and said you're playing this block of 3 games, what is a point tally you would be happy with? 7 points, I think, would have been a very good outcome.
I'd have been delighted with 7 points from them 3 games.
Yeah. I think it is purely because you've won the 2 hardest games, especially in very dramatic fashion.
Yeah.
and then there has been there's been something of a leggy performance that's followed it in a game that you probably would say is, well, you would definitely say if those three was the most winnable.
Well, I mean, we should beat West Brom at home. We're better than them. We're really good at home. We should win that game. But West Brom are a good enough side that I'm not like it's. If we'd have done exactly this but at home to Cardiff, I'd be annoyed. I am less annoyed with it being West Brom. I think they're a decent side, decent coach, and when we went through the squad, we were going, nah, he's good, and he's good, and he's quite good as well. They have got some good players. So
yeah, if nothing else, my takeaway from playing West Brom this season is I could happily not watch Leeds play West Brom again.
Yeah, fair. I mean, it was better than the away game.
It didn't have to do a lot to be.
No, I mean, it was better than the away game after 6 minutes, and all that had happened was that West Brom had missed a great chance.
Yeah.
It was a horrific game of football. So, yeah, hopefully Cardiff can beat Burnley tomorrow night. I don't think it's very likely. And then we will come back probably Friday, because with the Leeds game being Sunday, I assume that the press conference will be Friday.
Yeah.
So we'll probably do Friday evening ahead of the weekend's games. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's not a disaster. We're still in a strong position. So anyway, that will do us for episode 309 of the Mike White's podcast. I've been Jack. See you.
I've been Kate.